Hi guys, I'm Anna Yudin. If you don't know me, I am an author. I wrote The Curse in Their Veins, and I'm also a doctor of clinical psychology. And today I just want to talk about my everyday writing process, answer some of your questions about the writing process, and just a few tips and hacks. So, one thing that I've changed recently with regards to my writing is I've realized that even though it's the thing I value the most, it's the thing that I do last. And that doesn't really make sense. Why would you do the thing that you love the most last? I noticed that I was constantly trying to just get things out of the way, like busy work, errands, small things that weren't important to me, so that then I could fully focus on writing. But what that ended up doing was I never got to writing because there are always going to be things that come up in day-to-day life, new responsibilities, new things to check off your task list. And so I had to switch things up and I had to say, you know what, I'm going to start with writing every single day. And that actually works best for me because first thing in the morning is when my mind is sort of the clearest, the most lucid. And so if writing is really important for you and you feel like you struggle to get to it, either do it first thing in the morning or when the equivalent of that is for you, when your mind is the most lucid. So I've also been trying to do 5 pages every single day. So I have just a regular Word document. I didn't change the sizes to look like a book or anything. And I did 1.5 spacing. I know that the general rule of thumb when you're submitting to literary agents is 2-point spacing. I think it looks weird. I feel like it looks like an essay from 6th grade, and so I prefer to look at it 1.5 space. But obviously when it comes to submitting to literary agents, that's probably something I'm gonna have to change. So 5 pages takes me about like 2 to 3 hours, I would say. And after those 5 pages is usually when I start to feel like, okay, I'm getting a little bit hazy. I'm not writing as beautifully. I'm getting a little bit tired. And so that's when I will usually take my lunch break and move on to the other things that I do as part of my business. Here are some tips for writing. Regardless of what your topic is, even if it's in a subject that you feel like you're very knowledgeable in, it can be really helpful to just keep Google open on a separate tab and look up different parts of items or different things that you're not as knowledgeable about. For instance, my new novel takes place in a nautical seaside town, so obviously there are a lot of boats as part of that, and I don't know much about boats. So sometimes if I'm describing a boat, I'll literally pull up on Google parts of a boat and it'll pop up the different words for specific parts of the boat. And so when you're reading this as the reader, you're thinking, wow, this novelist must have done so much research into this topic. It's really quite simple. You just pull up Google, say parts of a blank, or what did people wear in the 1850s in America, or what kind of facial hair did people have during the Victorian era. And it's really simple to just grab a few details from there, the more convincingly put your reader into the world you're building. Instead of saying she wore a skirt, because you feel like, well, I don't know what people used to wear in this era. You could say she wore an embroidered velvet skirt with a hem made of mother of pearl. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. But you get what I'm trying to say. Just like if there's something that you feel like you want to get a little bit more nitty-gritty, but you don't know the specifics of what you're talking about, just do a quick Google search. Number 2, this is going to sound really strange, but I actually keep a running list of words. So every time I'm reading, when I come across a word that I haven't seen in a while, and usually it's not a word that's new to me, I know what it means. And in most cases, it's a word that's not at the forefront of my mind, that I haven't seen or used in a really long time. And so I will literally keep a running list of these words. And then when I'm writing, I have that list of words on one side of the screen, and then I have my Word document on the other side of the screen, and every now and then I just peruse the list and think about whether any of those words could fit naturally into whatever I'm describing. It's a really simple way to just boost your vocabulary and get out of the same kinds of words that you consistently use. It just makes your writing sound so much more sophisticated. I also have a separate list, usually on that same document, where I keep imagery that I've accumulated over the past year or two. So anytime I'll go on a vacation to, let's say, coastal Washington, I will jot down how the seagulls are fighting over mussels and the smell of algae and brine and all that good stuff. And I'll keep that in my list, and then when the right time comes, I will use those descriptions. The reason this is helpful is because you're not just inundating your readers with like paragraphs of description based on like places you've been or places you've seen. It's just like a little drop here, a little drop there, where it feels like, oh man, this author must have been completely there when they were writing this. Not necessarily. Could have gone there at some point, gathered the information and the beautiful imagery that you want, and kept it for a later time. And something else that I've started doing is I also started a list of highlightable quotes that I want in the book. Sometimes I have a sense of like, what are the themes, what are the motifs that I want my novel to have, but they're not fully fleshed out yet, and I know that it's not good to be very pinpointed about it. It's generally recommended to let themes emerge naturally as you're writing. But sometimes I'll think about, ooh, it'll be really cool when I get to make this character say this thing that I bet readers are going to want to highlight because it's a really powerful statement. And usually once I actually get to the part of the novel where I want to incorporate those more thematic, powerful sentences, I'm going to completely change them around. I'm going to make them fit the narrative. It's just good to keep them in mind, to keep them sort of at the forefront of your mind and think about when the time comes, don't forget about this powerful idea. Sometimes people ask, how structured do you get with writing your books? Do you have like a full outline? Do you completely wing it? I'm somewhere in the middle. I never really know how my books are going to end. I let that unfold kind of in the moment because I find that to be just more creative. But I will, once I start getting an image of what comes next, what are the next few chapters, I will jot down some bullet points in terms of like, here's what's going to be in the next chapter, here's what's probably going to be in the one after that, and in the one after that, but I won't go very far out. I'm thinking more so short term than like outlining the entire novel. And then in the evening, I've started reading every single night. I've replaced my TV with reading. I actually made a video about this on my separate channel, so check that out if you're interested in it. But when I read, I don't just read as a reader, I'm also reading as a writer, which means I'm paying attention to words that the author used. I'm paying attention to words that I haven't heard in a while that I want to sort of refresh my mind to. I'm paying attention to how they're structuring the novel, the different balance of imagery versus dialogue versus narration versus action. I'm paying attention to the length of the chapters, what's working, what's not working, themes, the things that really tug on my heartstrings that I feel like, ooh, maybe this is a topic that I want to bring into one of my pieces of writing. And I feel like the most important thing that I do when I read is I highlight. And I, for the most part, just highlight beautiful imagery that really transports me to a place, because when I'm highlighting something, I'm essentially rereading it a second time. I find it kind of hard to focus if I'm just reading through it once. If there's something that I want to emphasize and really focus my attention to, I have to go back and reread it by highlighting it. So sometimes people are like, why are you highlighting all your books? Like, what, you have like a test on a piece of fiction? And I have to explain like, no, I just like to highlight parts that I think are particularly beautiful. And it's not even necessarily like twists in the story, the most powerful dialogue. It's just stuff that I find beautiful. Let me give you an example. So as you can see, this is from Wayward. Just random stuff highlighted. So here, for instance, I highlighted cocoon safe inside her womb, iridescent fingers curled into fists. The window is open and outside a wood pigeon coos, the gentle notes carrying on the breeze. Like if someone sees this, they're probably gonna be like, why did you highlight this? To me, it's just the most beautiful part of the writing that I want to emulate in my own writing. So let me answer some of the questions you guys put in the community post I made. I don't have many, I'm still growing this community, so subscribe and like if you want to see more stuff. Jody Lee says, as someone who struggles to organize ideas, tips for how do you do this? Yeah, pretty much the whole writing process, please. So I think I kind of answered this in this video. How I structure ideas is I'll make like a very faint outline, maybe like a draft of how I want the chapters to sit, and then I will very heavily modify that as I get to those chapters, but just kind of thinking more short term than long term. What do you want the next 3 chapters to be? I think you'll find that as you start writing those 3 chapters, the next 3 chapters will just naturally unfold. I'm a big proponent of just listening to your unconscious come through while you're writing. I don't think that my writing comes from me. I think that my writing comes from the whole cultural symbols or, collective unconscious of humans across time. And so I'm not gonna sit here and say that I need to like plan out every single little thing, because that to me feels too manufactured. I think it's okay to just start writing and just keep writing more of what you love, and then it'll just naturally unfold. Tommy Dowd says, I want to get started by writing small projects instead of trying to tackle a really big project. Do you have any advice for exercises you did to prepare yourself for larger projects? Yeah, so for the longest time, I used to only write short stories because I couldn't stay focused on one topic for like a year at a time. I felt like there wasn't anything that I cared about that much, that like 6 months, 9 months down the line, I would still be invested in this. The thing that actually moved me more into novels was fleshing out short stories. So I wrote one novel that I never published. Then there was The Curse in Their Veins, which I did publish, and now I'm working on my third novel. And before that, it's been just by and large short stories. And what really turned me into novels was those first two novels that I wrote initially started off as short stories. And so what I thought was the short story turned out to just be the first chapter. In a sense, novels are just a bunch of short stories one after the other, except they have a lot more context and you're getting a lot more accustomed to the worlds, the characters, etc. But every chapter is essentially a short story in that it is meant to send one particular message, or meant to move the plot forward in one specific way, or meant to help us learn something about a particular character. And so in short stories, that's perfectly enough for it to be subtle. You know, like short stories don't have to be huge, explosive fireworks like some novels are. Short stories can be a little bit more subdued. So if you're trying to move from shorter projects to bigger projects, I would just say start with a short project, a short goal, and then just keep adding to that. Chapter 1 is the first goal, chapter 2 is the next goal, and you just keep adding and adding those building blocks until essentially you're forming a long-term project without even realizing it. So hope that helps. All right, let me know what other videos you want me to make on this channel. I definitely want to give you guys more of the content that you're interested in. And also you will notice this is called Book and Hearth. I've been making a lot of book related videos, but I do want to also focus more on the hearth side. And what I mean by the hearth side, romanticizing life, living in tune with nature, showing the beauty of the world. So let me know if you have any ideas for that. I have a video I'm thinking of making soon on the transition from winter to spring and how to sort of live in alignment with that, but I'm definitely open for suggestions. See you soon.